eyes opened to a sound like rain on metal. The pod hissed and steamed around him. Cold air filled his lungs and made him cough hard. His body felt strange, like it did not belong to him anymore. 300 years of sleep had changed something deep inside him, even if his face still looked young. He pushed himself up from the pod. His hands shook. His legs almost did not work. The medical team had warned them all about this before they went into deep sleep. The body forgets how to be awake. It forgets how to move. It forgets how to be human. The viewing window showed him the stars, billions of them, more stars than anyone on Earth had ever seen before. The Pioneer one had traveled far from home, so far that the sun of Earth was just another point of light somewhere behind them. Did not know it yet, but everything had changed while he slept. The galaxy was not the same place anymore. Around him, 200 pods stood in perfect rows. Each one held a person. Each one held a colonist from Earth who had volunteered to leave home and build a new civilization on a distant world. They had all chosen to sleep for 300 years so they could survive the long journey through space. Now they would wake up in a galaxy they did not understand. Arya's voice came through the speakers. She was the ship's mind, an artificial intelligence that had been awake the whole time. She had kept the ship running through the long darkness. She had watched the stars move. She had watched the engines burn fuel. She had been alone for 300 years. Arya told what had happened. The words came fast and cold and hard. They had taken over most of the galaxy. They had crushed empires. They had broken species and made them slaves. They had ruled through fear and power. No one could fight them. No one had ever beaten them. They had been in power for 17,000 years. Felt something break inside his chest. Earth was alone. Humanity was alone. They had left home thinking the galaxy was empty or full of equal species, but they had left home in the past. They were landing in the future. The future had a master. The master was called the. He made his way to the main computer room. His legs were still weak. His hands still shook, but his mind was working now. He was starting to think again. He was starting to understand that everything was different. The other pods began to open. People woke up confused and sick. Dr. Lisa Grant came first. She had been the ship's chief medical officer before sleep. She was still young, her red hair wet with the cold from the pod. She looked at and saw the fear in his eyes. "What happened?" she asked. Told her everything. He told her about the empires. He told her about the slaves. He told her about the fear that had gripped the entire galaxy for thousands of years. Lisa's face went white, but she was a doctor. She was trained to handle bad news. She nodded and started to help the other colonists wake up. She gave them medicine to help their bodies remember how to work. Engineer Tommy Cole woke next. He was young and strong, and his body responded faster than most. When told him about Tommy just sat down on the floor and stared at nothing. "We're dead," Tommy said. "We're flying a research ship into a galaxy ruled by a species that has never lost a war. We're dead." "Maybe," said, "or maybe we're the most dangerous thing they've ever encountered." Tommy looked at him like he was crazy, but was not crazy. He was thinking like a human from Earth. He was thinking like something that had evolved on a world where danger was everywhere, where predators were fast and strong and cruel, where survival meant being clever and quick and willing to do things that seemed impossible. Commander Dean woke up last of all. He was older than the others. He had gray in his hair. He had commanded military ships before he took the job of leading the colonists. When he heard about he did not panic. He did not despair. He just nodded and started asking questions. "How many are there?" he asked. "Unknown," Arya said, "but they control 80% of the galactic core." "How advanced is their technology?" he asked. "Advanced enough to have ruled for 17,000 years without defeat," Arya said. Nodded again. He looked at Tommy and Lisa. He looked at the other colonists who had gathered around them. There were 200 of them, 200 humans, 200 people from a world that they did not know existed. Then we need to be smart about this, said. We need to understand the galaxy. We need to learn who they are. We need to learn what they want. And we need to find out if there is any way for humans to survive in this galaxy at all. Felt something change inside him. The fear was still there. The shock was still there. But now there was something else. Now there was purpose. They had woken up in a galaxy ruled by terror, but they were human. They came from a world where survival was not guaranteed. They came from a species that could adapt and change and find new ways to beat impossible odds. Maybe Tommy was right. Maybe they were dead. But maybe they were not. Maybe they were the most dangerous thing the galaxy had ever seen. Maybe they would learn to fear them. Maybe the 17,000 years of terror were coming to an end. No one knew it yet. No one could have guessed it. But the galaxy was about to change forever. And it would all begin because 200 humans woke up from sleep and decided to fight. The sensors picked up the fleet 3 days after the colonists woke up. Arya announced it without emotion. 3 massive warships were heading toward the Pioneer One's position. They would be in weapons range in 4 hours. Commander Dean sat in the command chair. He had spent the last 72 hours learning everything the ship's databases could tell him about The information was not good. They had weapons that could destroy a planet. They had shields that could absorb the energy of a star. They had never been defeated in combat, not once in 17,000 years. Stood beside, he had been reading the tactical files too. The Pioneer One was a research and transport ship. It had weapons, but they were small and weak compared to what was coming. It had shields, but they were designed to protect against radiation and cosmic debris, not military attack. They've seen us on the sensors, Arya said. They are accelerating. They will reach us in 3 hours and 40 minutes. Did not move. He was thinking, could see it in his face. The commander was running through scenarios in his mind. He was looking for options. He was looking for any way out of this that did not end with all of them dead. Send out a distress call, said. Full spectrum. Let anyone who is listening know that we are here. That will alert every military force in this region, Arya said. I know, said. Send it anyway. Arya transmitted the signal. The message was simple. A new species had entered the galaxy. Humans. They were looking for peaceful contact. They wanted to establish trade and friendship. No one answered the call. No one came to help, but they heard it. They heard it and changed course slightly, moving faster toward the Pioneer One. The 3 warships appeared on the. They were immense. Had seen pictures in the databases, but pictures did not prepare him for the reality of seeing them. Each ship was the size of a mountain. They bristled with weapons and armor. They looked like death given shape. A message came through in English. Arya had transmitted the human language to the computers, and now they used it to speak. Unknown vessel, identify yourself. You have entered territory. You have 10 minutes to transmit your location data, ship specifications, and cargo manifest. Failure to comply will result in immediate destruction. Leaned forward, he pressed the communication button. This is Commander Dean of the Pioneer One representing the human species from the planet Earth. We come in peace. We have no hostile intent. We wish to establish diplomatic relations with your people. There was silence for 30 seconds. Then the response came. You have 5 minutes to surrender. Disengage all weapons. Power down your engines. Prepare your ship for capture. Failure to comply will result in your destruction. Felt his heart beating fast. Around him, the colonists were scared. He could see it in their faces. They had woken up into a nightmare. Now the nightmare was about to kill them. They're charging weapons, Arya said. All 3 ships are locking targeting systems on us. How much can our engines do? Asked. We can accelerate to half power, but they will catch us. Nodded, he made a decision. It was the kind of decision that could get everyone killed, but doing nothing would definitely get everyone killed. Tommy said into the communication system, I need you to push the engines as hard as they will go. I do not care if you burn them out. I need speed. Tommy Cole was in the engine room. He heard the order. He understood what it meant. They were about to fire. The Pioneer One was about to run. And they were about to do something that no human had ever done before. They were about to fight the... All engines to maximum, Tommy said. We are going to move. The Pioneer One accelerated. It was not as fast as the warships, but it was faster than they expected. The human ship shot forward like a small animal fleeing from larger predators. They fired their weapons. The bolts of energy raced through space. Most of them missed the Pioneer One. The ship was small and fast and unpredictable. It moved in ways that seemed wrong to tactical computers. Those computers were designed to track large, slow-moving targets. They were not designed to track something that changed direction as fast as a human could think. 3 direct hits, Arya announced. Shields down to 60%. They are adjusting their targeting pattern. Kept his eyes on the tactical display. He could see the warships moving to cut off his escape routes. There were 3 of them. There was 1 Pioneer One. The math was simple. They were going to lose. But then something happened. The Pioneer One twisted through space in a way that should have torn the ship apart. The human pilot, a man named Rice, pulled the controls hard to the left and down at the same time. The G-forces were brutal. People fell to the ground, but the ship moved. 2 more missiles passed, where the Pioneer One had been 1 second before. They cannot predict our movements, Arya said. It was not quite wonder in her voice, but it was close. Their weapons systems expect targets to follow logical flight patterns. You are not following logical patterns. That is because we are desperate, said, and desperate things do desperate things. They fired again. This time they fired more slowly, trying to lead the human ship instead of just hitting it. But humans had evolved as hunters. Humans had evolved to predict the movements of fast animals. Humans were good at understanding patterns. Rice could see what they were trying to do. He could see the trap, and he could move in ways that the computers had never anticipated. 1 missile grazed the edge of the Pioneer One's shields. The impact threw to the ground. Alarm screamed through the ship, but the Pioneer One was still moving. It was still alive. And then saw it. There was a gap in the formation, a small window of space between the 3 warships. It was not much. It would take perfect timing. It would take skill that no human pilot had ever had to develop before. Said, there is a gap at bearing 270, go through it. Saw it, he understood what was asking. It was suicide. It was also the only way to survive. The Pioneer One accelerated again. It shot toward the gap between the 2 closest warships. They tried to close the gap. They tried to move their ships fast enough to crush the human vessel. But human reflexes are fast, faster than computers expected. The Pioneer One slipped through the gap with only meters to spare. Behind them, the 3 warships had to slow down to avoid crashing into each other. For a moment they were free. For a moment it looked like they might actually survive. They are in pursuit, Arya said, but we now have a lead. We can jump to hyperspace in 45 seconds. Made another decision. Send another message to the commander, he said. Tell him we want to talk. Tell him we are different. Tell him we are willing to meet him face to face if he will listen. It was the riskiest move of all. But sometimes the only way to survive was to be brave enough to try the impossible. The commander's name was. He had been in power for 3,000 years. He had conquered 7 different civilizations. He had never met a species that did not fear him. He had never encountered anything that made him question his supremacy. Until now. The message came through his communication system. It was from the human captain. Dean wanted to negotiate. He wanted to talk. He wanted to understand. Was curious. In 3,000 years, he had learned that curiosity was dangerous. But he had also learned that curiosity kept him alive when his enemies fell into predictable patterns. He ordered his fleet to stand down. He opened a communication channel directly to Dean. "I am," the commander said. His voice was deep and hard, like an avalanche of stone. "You have something to say before I destroy you." Dean appeared on the He was human, had never seen a human before. The human looked small and fragile. He had only 2 arms. He had soft skin. He looked like prey. "I want to tell you about my people," said. His voice was steady. He was not afraid, or if he was, he did not show it. "I want to tell you why we are different from every other species you have ever encountered." "You are not different," said. "You are just another primitive species that has stumbled into my territory. You are just another problem that I will eliminate." "Then why did you answer my call?" asked. "Why did you not just destroy us?" Did not have an answer that he wanted to give. The human had a point. A commander of his power and age did not need to talk to prey, but had listened anyway. "Speak quickly," said. "I am losing patience." Took a breath. "My people come from a planet called Earth. It is a harsh world. It is a world where danger is everywhere. We evolved as survivors. We evolved as hunters. We evolved to never give up, no matter how bad things seemed. We came to your galaxy not to conquer. We came to build. We came to learn. We came to find our place among the stars." "You came to my galaxy to invade," said. "You came to take what is mine." "No," said. "We came because we had to leave our home. The galaxy is very large. There is room for everyone. There is room for humans and to exist together. There is room for trade and knowledge sharing. There is room for alliance." Made a sound that was like distant thunder. It was laughter. It was not a kind sound. "You believe we need your help?" asked. "You believe that a species that just woke up from sleep could be valuable to us?" "I believe that every perspective is valuable," said. "I believe that you have ruled alone for thousands of years. I believe that ruling alone becomes lonely. I believe that humans bring something different to this galaxy, something that might help you solve problems you have forgotten how to solve." Was quiet for a long time, then he made a decision. "I am inviting you to board my flagship," he said. "You and a small team. We will meet face to face, and then I will decide if your species lives or dies." It was a trap. Both commanders knew it was a trap, but it was also the only chance. Gathered his team. Went with him. Dr. Lisa Grant came to speak about human biology. Engineer Tommy Cole came to speak about human technology. They put on their suits and moved through space in a small shuttle toward the massive warship. The interior of the vessel was vast and strange. The walls seemed to breathe. Plants grew from every surface. The air was warm and smelled like rain and electricity. It was not a place made for humans, but humans were adaptable. Was enormous. He was twice the size of any human. He had 4 arms, each one as thick as a human torso. His skin was gray and hard like armor. His eyes were yellow and ancient. He looked at the humans like a god looking down at insects. "You understand that you are completely defenseless here," said. "Yes," said. "That is the point. That is how you know we want peace. We would not come here defenseless if we wanted war." "Perhaps you are simply stupid," said. "Perhaps," admitted. "But stupidity and bravery often look the same from far away." Sat down in a chair that was built for beings much larger than humans. He looked at. He waited for the human to speak. Talked for 3 hours. He told about Earth. He told him about how humans had learned to survive in a world of constant danger. He told him about human history. He told him about human art and music and philosophy. He told him about the human capacity for empathy and cooperation and sacrifice. Added details about what humans could bring to civilization. New perspectives, new ways of solving problems, new art forms, new philosophy, new friendship. Tommy spoke about human engineering. Humans were not as advanced as he explained, but humans thought in different ways. Sometimes different ways led to new solutions. When they finished speaking was quiet. He stood up and walked to a viewing window. He looked out at the stars. He was thinking. He was considering. He was wondering if this strange new species could be something more than just another problem to eliminate. They have ruled this galaxy for 17,000 years, said. We have conquered everything. We have defeated every enemy, but we have also become stale. We have become predictable. We have forgotten how to change. He turned back to look at the humans. I am going to do something that no commander has done in 10,000 years, said. I am going to take a risk. I am going to allow your species to exist in my galaxy. I am going to give you a sector of space to colonize. I am going to accept your alliance. And if you betray me, I will destroy not just your colony but every planet your people ever touch. Extended his hand. In human culture, this meant agreement and trust. Looked at the small human hand. He looked at this tiny creature that had dared to come before him. And then the massive commander reached out with one of his 4 arms and shook the human's hand. Everything had changed. The galaxy had changed, and no one yet understood how much. Not all agreed with his decision. In the deep command chambers of the Empire, there was anger. There was fear. There was the terrible certainty that the leader had made a mistake that would destroy everything. General was one of these angry voices. He had commanded fleets for 5,000 years. He had believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. He believed that showing mercy was the same as showing weakness. He believed that allowing humans to exist was the beginning of the end for supremacy. Gathered followers, there were many who thought like he did. They called themselves the pure. They believed that blood and culture had to remain pure. No alien allies, no human friendship, no compromise. Made a plan. He would attack the Pioneer One while Dean was still on his flagship. He would destroy the human colony ship. He would kill all the colonists. He would kill Dean and everyone who had supported this alliance. Then he would use the attack to blame for being weak. He would use the failure to remove the old commander from power. It was a good plan. It was also evil. 100 warships assembled in secret. They did not use normal communication channels. They used old codes that only the pure remembered. They assembled in a region of space far from territories, and then they accelerated toward the Pioneer One. The ship had no warning. Was in the bridge when the sensors exploded with alerts. Arya announced the incoming fleet with cold precision. 100 warships, military-grade weapons, full attack formation. 2 minutes until they reached firing range. It was a death sentence. Made immediate decisions. He sent out the order. All colonists who could survive on their own should enter the escape pods. They should scatter. They should run. They should hide on nearby moons and planets. Survival was the only priority. But stayed behind. So did Tommy Cole. So did Lisa Grant. So did 50 other volunteers who understood what had to happen. They had no chance of winning a battle against 100 warships, but they could buy time. They could force them to spend resources they did not want to spend. They could make the attack expensive enough that might have to retreat. Get the fighters ready, said to the flight coordinator. The Pioneer One had 10 small attack fighters. They were mostly used for exploration and rescue work. They had never been in a real battle before. But humans had evolved as hunters. Humans understood strategy and tactics. Humans could think in ways that computers could not predict. Tommy was in the engine room. He rerouted every system that was not essential into the weapons arrays. He bled power from life support and water recycling and food production. Everything went to weapons and shields. We have 90 seconds, Arya said. Entered the fighter bay. The 10 pilots were already suited up. They were scared. They were terrified, but they were ready to fight. They are expecting us to run or surrender, said. They are not expecting us to fight. They are not expecting us to attack them. We are going to surprise them. We are going to move in patterns that their computers do not expect. We are going to show them what human pilots can do." The fighters launched. They were small and fast. They were nothing compared to the warships, but they moved like animals. They twisted and turned and spun in ways that seemed impossible. The weapons fired. Most of them hit empty space where the fighters had been a moment before. Led his fighter squadron directly toward the formation. It was madness. It was the kind of thing that only humans would try. They responded by opening fire with everything they had. But human reflexes are fast. Humans had evolved to hunt creatures that moved quickly. Tommy watched the targeting patterns from the engineering console. He could predict what they would do. He had read the tactical files. He understood the patterns. He fed this information to the shield generators. He moved the shields to where the fire would hit. He protected the Pioneer one with perfect timing. Led 3 fighters in a spiraling attack pattern. They had never encountered this pattern before. Their computers tried to predict where the human fighters would be. But humans did not think like computers. Humans were not predictable. Humans were creative and desperate and willing to take risks that made no logical sense. The first warship fired a massive volley of missiles. It was overkill. It was the attack of a superior force against an inferior one. But the human fighters were not where the missiles expected them to be. One missile went off course. It hit another warship. The formation broke. They had never fought enemies that did not follow logical patterns. They had never encountered prey that moved like hunters instead of like prey. Their weapons systems were designed to kill targets that moved in ways they could predict. The humans did not move like that. Lisa was in the medical bay. She was preparing for casualties. She knew they would lose people, but she did not know how many. She did not know if any of them would survive. The Pioneer One's shields were failing. Tommy had pushed the engines to the breaking point. The reactors were starting to overload. The ship was fighting like a wounded animal. It was fighting with the fury of something that knew it was going to die anyway. One of the human fighters was destroyed. A missile caught it head-on, had been piloting that fighter. He had been a teacher before he came to the galaxy. Now he was gone. But the other 9 fighters kept fighting. They kept attacking. They kept moving in unpredictable patterns. They kept forcing them to spend weapons and resources. 3 warships were damaged. 2 were forced to retreat. The fleet was breaking apart. They had come expecting to destroy a defenseless research ship. Instead, they had found themselves fighting something that refused to die. And then something changed. A massive warship appeared from hyperspace. It was personal flagship. The commander had realized what was happening. He had come to defend his new allies. The pure fleet saw his ship and knew the battle was over. They scattered. They ran. They disappeared back into space before it could destroy them. Brought his fighters home. The Pioneer One was damaged. The engines were smoking. The shields were completely gone. People had died. But they had survived. Against 100 warships they had survived. Tommy came out of the engine room covered in burns. Lisa counted the dead. There were 23 colonists who would not be leaving this ship. Sat in the command chair and felt the weight of command press down on him. They had won, but winning had cost them. In this galaxy, he was learning, survival always costs something. Sent a message. The old commander was impressed. He was amazed. He was starting to understand why the humans were different from every other species he had ever encountered, moved through space with his entire fleet. He had decided to end the rebellion personally. General and the Pure had violated the commander's authority. They had attacked without permission. They had betrayed the ancient code of the military. They would answer for this. But more than that, had something to prove. He had taken a risk by accepting the human alliance. He had opened himself to criticism and doubt. If rebellion succeeded, it would show that was weak. It would show that accepting aliens as equals was a mistake. So fought with an intensity that had not been seen in space for 10,000 years. He moved through the rebel fleets with devastating power. His weapons were ancient and terrible. His tactics were perfect. His will was absolute. Within 5 days, the rebellion was over, was captured. The pure faction was destroyed. The galaxy knew that was still in control. The galaxy knew that the human alliance was real. Was brought before the High Council. He was tried by a court that had been judging commanders for. He was found guilty of treason and rebellion. The sentence was exile. He would be sent to the edge of space and forbidden from ever returning. But before his exile was brought to meet with, the old commander wanted the rebel general to understand something important. "You believed that accepting the humans would make us weak," said. "You believed that allies were a sign of failure. You were wrong." Said nothing. He refused to show weakness even in defeat. "The humans fought 100 of our warships with 10 fighters," continued. "They fought with creativity and desperation and refusal to accept defeat. This is what they bring to us. Not technology, not resources, but a new way of thinking, a new way of fighting, a new way of surviving. You were too blind to see it." Was sent into exile, the moved on. The Pioneer One was repaired. Technology was used to fix the human ship. Engineers from both species worked together. They learned from each other. The humans shared human engineering principles. They shared their advanced knowledge. Together they created something better than either species could have created alone. Was offered a position of honor. He was made ambassador to the. It was a job that demanded wisdom and strength and the ability to understand both human and culture. Accepted. Tommy Cole became the head of the joint engineering programs. He worked directly with engineers to develop new technologies. He taught humans how to think like engineers and engineers how to think like humans. Within a year, breakthrough after breakthrough was achieved. Lisa Grant established a medical exchange program. Doctors learned human healing techniques. Human doctors learned biology. Together they developed cures for diseases that had plagued both species for centuries. Dean was offered a seat on the High Council. He became the first non to hold such power. He used this position to advocate for other alien species that had been enslaved by the. One by one, their chains were broken. One by one, they were offered freedom. But not all slaves chose freedom. Some had lived in slavery for so long that they did not know how to be free. The established colonies where freed slaves could learn to live as equals instead of subjects. Humans helped teach them. Humans understood what it meant to be different. Humans understood what it meant to find your place in a new world. New human colonies were established throughout space. Humans built cities on dead moons. They built research stations on asteroids. They built farms on worlds that had been considered too dangerous to settle. Because humans came from a dangerous world, they were good at making dangerous places safe. Within one generation, the galaxy had changed. The fear that had gripped alien species for 17,000 years began to fade. They were still powerful, they were still advanced, but they were no longer alone. They had partners, they had friends, they had the humans. And human ships flew together in exploration missions. They discovered new worlds. They found new species. And this time, the new species were offered alliance instead of subjugation. The age of terror was ending. The age of cooperation was beginning. A human child named Sarah was born on a station. She was the first human child born in this sector of space. Himself came to see her. The ancient commander held the tiny human baby in one of his 4 massive arms. He looked down at this small, fragile creature and saw the future. "This is what the future will be," said two, and human together, creating something that neither species could create alone. Nodded, he understood. Every human understood. They had come to the galaxy alone and afraid. They had found a species that seemed unbeatable, but humans were good at doing the impossible. Humans were good at finding hope in hopeless situations. Humans were good at making allies out of enemies. Stories began to spread through the galaxy about the humans. Stories about how they had fought 100 warships with 10 fighters. Stories about how they had convinced a godlike species to show mercy. Stories about how human bravery and human creativity had changed the course of galactic history. In the schools of 100 different species, young creatures learned about humans. They learned about Earth. They learned about how a small species from a harsh world had dared to challenge the order of things. The galaxy had been ruled by terror for 17,000 years. Then humans woke up from sleep, and everything changed. 10 years after first contact, stood on a platform with Endine. They were watching a human and worked together on a construction project. They were building a new space station. It would be a place of trade and learning and friendship. It would be a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. "We gambled on you," said Tu. "We took a risk. We accepted allies instead of slaves. It was the best decision I ever made." Looked up at the old commander. He saw wisdom in those ancient yellow eyes. He saw respect. He saw the beginning of a true friendship between two very different species. "Thank you for taking the risk," said. "Thank you for giving humans a chance." Made the deep rumbling sound that was laughter. It was a sound of joy. It was a sound of hope. And above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy that was finally learning to live in peace.